On our morning show today from WRC Radio, Pam Kohlberg, Dementia Care Specialist at Aging and Disability Resource Center, our guest in the studio to talk about some upcoming events and classes. And good to see you again, Pam.
Yeah, nice to see you, Phil. Yeah, I just was always hoping, you and I get together fairly often to talk, and I'm just hoping that people aren't like, oh, it's that lady talking about brain disease again. Oh, my God, it's so depressing. So, I'm always hoping that people will see that there's a silver lining to the cloud. Like, there are things that we can do. There are things that are happening in Richland Center that bring some hope, that it isn't all doom and gloom, And you know me, I'm obsessed talking about the brain. I'm actually pushing with the state to change my title from dementia care specialist to brain health enthusiast because I do a lot of educating around brain health. Mm-hmm. And they're actually considering, because I said, people don't want to hear the word dementia. They want to hear, what can I do with this thing that I carry around on top of my head? Mm-hmm. I used to think it's 8 pounds, but I read recently it's a lot lighter than that. I don't know if we're less encumbered by the brain. But anyway, I'm just hoping that people see this as a hopeful journey, that we're just talking about this body that ages, and how can we do things that help make it better, and how can we do things in community. A lot of it is talking about our friends and neighbors, and what can we do to sort of support them and support ourselves. Yeah.
Well, you have a lot of fun things coming up and projects and meetings. We'll talk about those. But I think we want to get back and recap. The last time you were on, you had one of our listeners that wanted you to do a retraction or correction.
Right. I guess we were talking about, because, we're in the same state as UW-Madison, and they are internationally known for their research. And one of the projects that they came up with is... It's a blood test that will tell you if you have this thing called amyloid in your brain. It's like a twisted protein, and a certain amount of that amyloid in your brain could lead to a disease called Alzheimer's, because that's one of the many diseases under the umbrella of dementia. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you've gotten that disease. And so what this person was asking me is to say, that this blood test isn't going to tell you if you have dementia or not. It's just going to tell you if you have amyloid. So like certain diseases, you have a certain presence of a certain amount of disease, and then you want to look further. And so I think this person wanted me to correct that notion that this blood test isn't going to diagnose you. It's just going to let you know if you have this presence of something that needs to be looked at sooner. So we know with all the different forms of dementia, there's Lewy body, there's frontal temporal. Only Alzheimer's has that kind of amyloid buildup. All of us have some of it. We want to know if we have enough that kind of tips the scale into having this disease. But there's other signs of it. So all this is an indicator. It doesn't mean... I think they're a little bit worried that this test is going to be misused, because people will be like, oh, that blood test, that means I have it. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have it. It just means that we need to look further. Just like with memory, if you have memory concerns, that doesn't mean you have dementia. It just means it's one of many symptoms. And so just to kind of give a little caveat, a little warning that doing this blood test isn't predictive or doesn't diagnose you. It just tells you if you want to look at this further. And we know people, that's one of the amazing things about the brain, is we've seen that people can have this presence of amyloid. Two brains can have some amyloid, but some people get dementia and some people don't develop into Alzheimer's. And they've looked a lot at UW-Madison about why that is. And the reason is, the person who did exercise, ate well, kept their blood pressure in check, kept their blood sugars, didn't get it. So when you have amyloid, that doesn't mean you necessarily have that disease. It can be that there's other lifestyle factors. You're educated, you learn new things that kind of keep that at bay. And that's why the brain is so interesting. Just because you have a present doesn't mean you're going to develop disease. And there are things you can do. And that's why I'm always on the campaign to teach, like I'm hoping at the Shopping News Senior Expo to talk about brain health, that I'm teaching a class called Boost Your Brain and Memory. All that is to show you, just because you have the potential, maybe you have some genetics, somebody in your family had Alzheimer's, doesn't necessarily predictive that you're going to get the disease. It means that you have to also look at your lifestyle factors. So what the the listener on your radio station was saying, hey, don't tell people that this blood test diagnoses it. It just tells them they have this presence of something that could lead to disease, but there's other things that could have happened that tip that balance. So I hope I sit corrected, that people should look into it more and not expect, we're always looking for that one pill, right? If I could just take this one pill, I won't get this disease, right? If I just take this one test, it will tell me. Well, it just shows that you have amyloid in the brain. There are medicines out on the market, and they're not appropriate for everybody, but there's medicines now that can get rid of amyloid if it's safe for you. So it's still a delicate balance, but people still want to look at it not only at potential disease, but they also want to look at their lifestyle and say, what am I doing to counterbalance that? So there's my correction that about this blood test. And I hope I explained it well. I hope if not, that listener will tell me if I need to correct myself again.
But I think it's like a lot of things, cancer cells doesn't necessarily mean we're going to, it's kind of the same thing.
Right. Yeah, and we all fear cancer, and so what do? We shut down and don't want to hear about it. But if my family had cancer, my family had breast cancer, what am I going to do to counterbalance that? Instead of, oh my God, I'm going to get it. You have to really be careful on the internet, right? Like peanut butter doesn't keep you from getting stuff. Like there's some crazy stuff out there, but you want to look at reputable sites on the internet that say, what really works. And so just like you would fight cancer by your lifestyle, looking at what you eat, looking at how you take care of your body, right? And it doesn't, so I think that we used to think, if I'm genetic, if I have it in my family, that means there's a chance I'm going to get it. Well, that's one factor. Then you have to look at other factors. Are you a smoker? Do you have high blood pressure? Do you have diabetes? You have to look at other things. So I think it's always a balance. We don't have that one pill or that one test is going to do it. It's all about kind of looking at the bigger picture. So
speaking of tests, I think you have some testing opportunities coming up, don't you?
Yes. Well, you can always get a memory screen if people are really concerned about their memory as one of the many symptoms. Okay, it's only one symptom among disease. Then you can always come to the ADRC. But if you want to learn more about what is it how do they decide if somebody has one of the forms of dementia, Alzheimer's, Lewy body, whatever, what's that testing? And so there's a really interesting program out of the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute. Is this great program, and people can go on September 12th from 9:30 to 11:30. There's a program about it. Well, it's online. So what I thought is if I'm going to sit and watch this, I could sit and watch it with other people, right? So, you can come in person to the community center during that time, like 9 o'clock on September 12th, and I'm going to go online and watch this program. It's about 2 hours. They usually have... it's like a hybrid program, right? There's somebody up on the screen talking about what's involved with cognitive testing and brain imaging. There's so much now. Where does that fit? So you can come and watch it with me at the community center. You can also go online, and you would just go to, it's called the other ADRC, the Alzheimer's the Alzheimer's Disease Research Center through UW Wisconsin. And so people can always, I'll have this stuff online. I'll have this at the ADRC to find out. So if people want to watch it from their home, they can, or they can come sit with me from 9:30, 11:30 on September 12th and hear more about kind of the testing they do. It's still a pretty evolving field. It's amazing. We've known about Alzheimer's since, over 100 years, but we're still figuring out how to detect it. And I think it's a little bit like cancer. There's so many different kinds and so many different parts of the body. Same thing with dementia. There's so many different kinds in different parts of the brain that there's a lot that it's kind of a tricky thing to diagnose. So anyway, it's called Healthy Living with Mild Cognitive Impairment. It's part of a series, and it's at the Alzheimer's and Dementia Research Center at UW Richland. But if you want to come see it with me, come down to the community center on September 12th.
I think we all have some issues with remembering,
Right.
And that's one of the things, like, for instance, I can remember what song was playing when I was eating fish with my parents in the summer of 1974 in the jukebox, but I can't remember what was happening yesterday,
Right.
So, I mean, is this normal?
Yes. So we're all getting older, me too. I never usually forget a name and a face, and now it's starting to happen at age 60, right? And what it is that long-term memories are encoded deeper in the brain, right? So we're going to remember those long-term things because, frankly, we've been remembering them longer. We've been rehearsing them in our brain, right? Every time you think of that memory of your fish fry, you're kind of keeping that connection between the brain cells. But when we get nearer, we have a lot of distractions. I think people don't understand memory takes concentration, it takes focus, it takes a lot. Memory isn't one thing. And so if you're telling me something, but I'm also looking at my phone at the same time, or there's music playing, there's a lot of things grabbing our attention. And attention, our attention span is a lot shorter than it used to be because we have this constant distraction with our cell phone, right? So we're not encoding things deeper. And that's sometimes why we don't remember things. We don't really rehearse like what you had for breakfast. So sometimes we don't remember what we had for breakfast because we did it, we moved on, and we didn't rehearse it enough to do it. And so it is not unusual as you age to remember things less. I always like to think because our brains are so full of experience that we don't have as much room to put things in.
The hard drive's full.
Yes,
right?
Our hard drive is full. There you go. There's a nice old-fashioned analogy. But it's also that we just don't, our brain doesn't hold on things. Every night when we sleep is incredibly important. Our brain goes through and says, oop, I want to keep this one, the fish fry, with my parents. I want to keep that one, but I'm going to throw out the memory of what I, had for breakfast. And so we're constantly, brain is clearing that. And that's what it does when you sleep. That's why sleep is so important. So forgetting some things is important. It's whether you can think back. Where's my car parked in Walmart? That's the one I always have to, if you can think backwards and then eventually remember, that's not a problem. You just have so much competing for your attention. And there's many things that affect memory, right? There can be problems with thyroid. There can be infections. There can be so many different things that affect memory. Memory, in my mind, is just like a cough. It's one symptom. Just because you have a cough doesn't mean you have pneumonia, right? So you just want to think of memory in the context of so many things. So if you really want to remember something, you have to first of all, take note of it, pay attention, notice what's ever going on around you, and then rehearse it and say, oh, I'm going to want to remember that. I personally like to write things on my hand to remember them, but you could write it on a piece of paper. You can put it in your phone. Don't expect your brain to remember everything unless you've rehearsed it, you've put it down somehow. So, It's all interesting. I mean, aging, my husband, my husband always says that aging is an interesting process. Nobody really understands till you get there.
Yeah, right.
How complicated it is.
But I think it's true, in the cell phone generation and whatnot. Yeah. And I really know personally if I'm writing it down, like if I'm at a game, I still keep score manually with everything, and it helps me remember it because I actually took the time to write it down.
Yes, and therefore you're using one more sense, right?
Yeah.
I do the same thing when I listen to somebody. I will always write, and I can't always read my handwriting afterwards, and I might throw away that piece of paper or that shopping list or whatever. But they're saying that even writing shopping lists, the act of writing, not just typing, but the act of writing something, it's like you're putting senses in. You're using your tactile sense to remember something. You're looking at it and writing it. It's a way of rehearsing it with more than one sense. So if you tell me something, I've heard it. But if I write it, I'm looking at it, I'm sensing, I'm feeling it in my hand, that it doesn't matter if you keep onto that piece of paper, you've now encoded it in several different ways. So yes, I always hear from older people like, oh, my kids say, I should remember something and not keep writing it down. It's like, no, write things down. Write that shopping list. Even if you forget the shopping list at home, you're more likely to remember it because you took the time to write it.
Mm-hmm. Very true. You have some clinics coming up, including one this very week, the Power of Attorney Clinic.
Yeah, I was just talking with Joanne about this. So what people need to know is that Wisconsin is not a next of kin state. So if something happens to you, they don't necessarily, contact the next person. So for example, all the 18-year-olds, all my kids in my family, when they turned 18, I made them fill out a power of attorney for healthcare because there isn't a guarantee that if something happens to them, God forbid a car accident, that I would be necessarily allowed to consult, right? So that's a Wisconsin thing. Every state is different. So because it's not a next of kin state, you want to have that power of attorney that says, okay, this person's going to speak for me. The tricky thing is, I think as parents, we're always like, well, I don't want to pick my favorite child. Do I pick the oldest child? How do I decide who my power of attorney is? You want to go with the person that's comfortable dealing with doctors, because this is power of attorney for healthcare. So it's only able to make decisions about healthcare. You can't make decisions about people's money, right? So that power of attorney for healthcare is making decisions about healthcare. So you want people that are comfortable. I mean, it could be a nephew, not one of your son or daughter, because that person maybe works in the healthcare field, right? You want to do it, and so it has to be somebody that's comfortable. I know once I asked my son, and he said, whoa, I don't want that responsibility. So he wasn't comfortable. So I went to my daughter, who's more comfortable. You might be, you're not picking favorites. You're picking who is the family that's going to talk about it. And that's going to be somebody that you can have that hard conversation with. Hey, look, if this is going on, then I want life-sustaining, measures. But if this is going on, then let me go. It's a hard conversation. So you want somebody willing to have that conversation with you, because they're going to be speaking on your behalf when you're in a state where you can't make your own decisions. But the hardest thing I found about a paper, it's really simple. It's like 3 pages long. It's an easy form to fill out, but then it has to be witnessed. Somebody has to say this person's of right mind to sign it. And I found, since it can't be your doctor, it can't be a family member, right, that it's hard to find a witness. So that's what it is. This Wednesday, I think that's tomorrow night, September 3rd from 4 to 6. If you call the ADRC ahead and you make an appointment, then you can have this half an hour with people. We have a bunch of staff there and people from other agencies who will be your witness. You don't have to have the person that you're picking to be there. All you need is the name and address, preferably date of birth of the person you want, 2 people that you want to be your power of attorney for healthcare. And then you have all these professionals there that are able to be witnesses to that document. And then you want to make copies. You want to make sure your doctor have it. And then it's a piece of paper. It doesn't take away any rights until you're in a state where it's activated, right? So power of attorney is just a piece of paper until 2 doctors say, look, this person can't make decisions anymore. Now we're going to have this agent, this person, talk for them. So if that's something you want to do, you can do it anytime. You can pick up a packet at the ADRC anytime and get that power of attorney paperwork. You can download it from the line. But if you want some witnesses there, that's the key thing. It has to have 2 witnesses that aren't your family members. Then you want to come and you want to call the ADRC at 608-647-4616 because you have to sign up for a slot if you're going to come tomorrow night.
That's changed a little bit. I've actually done that several times where I've been a power of attorney for healthcare for family members, and it seems to me way back it came from a lawyer's office, but it doesn't necessarily have to, it sounds like.
Yeah, maybe things have evolved. I think when you want to look at estate things, I mean, ADRC can help with a lot, but when you really want to look at your estate and if you own land and your house and your will, I think Wisconsin's a little bit different. Now they have, revocable trust, all that kind of stuff. Then you want to go to a lawyer. This is a legal form, but it's really just naming a person. You're not giving the person anything except the authority to speak on your behalf when you're in a coma or whatever. So for power of attorney for healthcare, you can do that on your own. Power of attorney for finance, yes, there's a state form for it, but you also want to go to your specific bank. I have found out that many banks have their own method. I may fill out the state form for power of attorney for finance. That's a little bit trickier. You have to think about your investments and stuff. But you want your specific bank or all the banks you have to go through their form as well. So because each bank can make its own rules about it. So power of attorney finance, you want to be more careful. Anything to do with your estate, I would go to a state lawyer. It's worth the money. Because everybody's circumstance is individual, whether you own land, what you have. Unless you don't have a lot, you can write something. But the key thing is it has to be in writing, it has to be signed and dated, and then you have to keep it somewhere. So any of these papers, I have like a little firebox at home, somewhere you have to have it because a form doesn't mean anything if nobody can find it. Mm-hmm. So I've heard people put it in the glove compartment in the car, but then I'm like, what if you have a car accident? But you want to have that form given to the bank, to the doctor, to somebody else to have it so they can find it in time. But power of attorney for healthcare just has to do with decisions that are in the healthcare realm, and it is something you can do on your own.
And if you do name somebody, it's important that you kind of talk to them about
Yes.
what you'd like to have done or what they should or shouldn't do, right?
Yeah, I can't tell you the number of family members I run into that are like, oh, I got to sign this thing, but mom never said, did she want this or that? Because there's some tricky decisions and they come up quickly, do you want a flu shot when you're, in the middle of cancer, whatever. So you really want to, it's a tough conversation, but you'll be glad when you do it, it makes things clear. Yeah.
Pam Kohlberg, our guest today on the morning show. We'll be back to talk a little bit more about some upcoming events, including some dementia-friendly community training. And also later on, we'll talk about a men's shed initiative. We'll tell you about what that is coming up on the morning show. Welcome back to the morning show on WRCO. Pam Kohlberg, dementia care specialist, our guest in the studio, promoting some upcoming events. Pam, next in line, we want to talk about the dementia-friendly community training, which is coming up this month.
Right. So we all know, just by statistics, that a lot of our friends and neighbors might have any of a number of things going on, right? And so some of us have those brain diseases that fit under the. I don't like the word dementia. I've talked to people who have, Alzheimer's or whatever, and they're like, we don't like that word. Dementia sounds demented. So I'm on a campaign to try and see if I can avoid saying that word, except it's in my job title. But but what I like is that there's people around who know their friends and neighbors and family have dementia, but they want to be like, well, how can I be more accommodating if this person's going to the bank 3 times in a day forgetting they've been there, or they're upset because they think I'm stealing something from them when I'm not. And we know there's symptoms of the disease where people get more agitated easily, so sometimes, not everybody, or they forget things and get upset. And so how can we help those people not kind of go into that agitated mode? And so there's something called the Dementia Friendly Community Initiative. And so it trains people. I'm going to be at the Park Street Christian Church on September 11th at 6. It's about an hour. We'll talk about it. Usually people bring their stories, but the idea is, okay, so I know this person, I suspect this person. How will I know if this person who's acting differently or angry, at the store, how can I tell maybe if something else is going on and I need to give them some grace, and I need to maybe help them feel less upset, and I want them to be able to leave and feel okay about our interaction. Maybe I can help them have a better day because their brain is playing tricks on them. They have this disease that makes them think that, maybe get a little more paranoid or upset easily. So how do I be that dementia-friendly neighbor or community member? And so that's what we'll talk about. So it's a Thursday night. At Park Street Christian, which is at 148 South Park Street. Any of the stuff you're curious about, you can call the ADRC, which is the 608-647-4616 number, and they'll help direct you. But for this event, you don't have to pre-register. You can just show up. There's no food involved, so we're just going to be talking as many people as want to come. But I think it's really important for people to know it's kind of a scary disease. So, just like anything, what's the right thing to say? I don't want to upset people. We wanted people to be comfortable because it's all about approach. You and I have talked about this. How you say things, when you say it, the words you use can sometimes make people feel upset, or it can make them calm down. Like when you're, I'll never forget the story of your mom who had Lewy body dementia and her yelling at the chair. And so you went and scolded the invisible person in the chair to make her feel like you were going to take care of her, and she could sort of calm down, and then she could just focus on something else. So sometimes we have to realize that our minds play incredible stories in our head, right? And sometimes people get really caught up in that story in their brain, and they don't realize, where they are and what they're doing. And if we can help them come back to this present moment, maybe they don't need to be upset because their son is taking care of that person in the chair. So it's learning tips and tricks about that. And I really believe that Richland Center can be a dementia-friendly community. We've trained our sheriffs, our police, some of the banks. We do trainings all the time so that people who live here can stay in their home longer. They can go to businesses, longer. They can be involved in community activities. So anybody who wants to learn how to be a dementia-friendly person, that's September 11th at 6. Just show up at the Park Street Christian Church over there on Park Street.
And there's another webinar coming up later this month as well, correct? That's on the 12th of September?
Yes, that's the one that's about how to learn about the cognitive testing and brain imaging. So if people want to come to that webinar, they come to the community center on September 12th. Yeah, that's right, the next morning. I'm going to have to get some good sleep for my brain. But then I turn around the next morning and I'm at the community center September 12th at 9:30 to learn about anything about cognitive testing and brain imaging from the people who do it, who created these things, the UW-Madison folks. So yeah, there's a lot going on. We have a lot of support groups. We know that there's people out there. We want to give a shout out to those caregivers of people living with dementia. It's really hard to be a caregiver of somebody who's kind of changing the way they relate to the world and if they have a brain disease. And then there's the people themselves. And that's kind of my new campaign is let's think about those people who got one of these forms of dementia. How can we support them? So there's a support group for caregivers, but there's also a support group for the people living with. And we're learning more and more about a lot of people with dementia can, in the early stages, still go to their job, still be involved in their community, but they have to deal with this sort of stigma. Right? Dementia is a word that scares people, makes people think, oh, you're crazy, but you're not. You just have a brain disease. So I have a support group now, meets once a month on first Tuesdays, but I would like people to call me if they want to do it because I want to make sure it's appropriate. You never want a group of people getting together that have nothing to relate on. So if people want to do that support group for people living with a form of early stage of dementia, they can call me at the 608-548-3954. That's to me directly, and we can talk about if they're appropriate for the support group for people living with. So, let's not forget those people. We have support groups with people with all kinds of diseases like cancer and stuff. And we have to remember these are real people. These are people who know if you're talking down to them. They know if you talk to them differently. Yep. They know if you kind of think they're a little bit crazy. Like any human being can tell that by the way you talk to them. Oh, you don't think I can handle this. Well, let's give support to those people because they're still living their lives and they could be around for a while. So, let's give them some grace and see how we can support them. So anyway, so there's support groups. I have a support group for the caregivers, the people who take care of people with dementia, whether they're in a facility or they're still living at home. Many people live at home until the last year of the disease. Many people can live at home if they get supports like through the ADRC. But if you have one of those brain diseases, give me a call and we'll talk about what's appropriate.
You said you don't necessarily like the word dementia. What would you like to?
It's a brain disease. I'm trying to think. The people. It's technically called mild or major cognitive impairment. Right. That sounds very medical model. And so there's a people who have early forms of a condition called MCI, mild cognitive impairment. And that means they don't quite have one of the forms of dementia. They don't have Alzheimer's or Lewy body that they know yet. They just have a little more memory issues than maybe somebody who's getting old like you and me, right? So more than aging. So that condition called MCI is not quite dementia. It's just a different form. And so I know a lot of people who have MCI who say, yeah, I have MCI, but I'm still, going driving to New Jersey, or I'm still going to be doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to get involved in medical studies and stuff like that. So that MCI or mild cognitive impairment. So what I say is, what I asked this group of people, and it said, this is a supportive group of people curious about how to handle their memory issues while having a medical diagnosis with any form of early mild cognitive impairment. So I always just think of it as people can say they have memory issues, though sometimes it's not just memory, or you can say I have a brain disease. I mean, that's accurate. Your brain is changing. If disease is a hard word, it's a brain condition. And we all have brain conditions, depending on how much, coffee I had in the morning.
Right.
But yeah, so I would say find your word that you're comfortable with. But yeah, I know dementia has a stigma to it.
You have a brain health breakout coming up as well, late in the month.
Right. Well, I know that September 25th, I think it's a Thursday, the Shopping News is having their senior expo over at the community center. And I always like to go there and meet people. It's always interesting. And, maybe talk about brain health. We're still arranging that. Or I just want to talk to people about this brain class. So if people really want to delve into more details, sure, I'll be at the Senior Expo on the 25th, but they can also come to a class. So I have this series of classes. It's called Boost Your Brain and Memory, and it starts, it's on Monday. It's on Mondays, yeah. I think it went into the newspaper as Thursdays. I think I forgot to correct my flyer. But anyway, it's Mondays, September 29th through November 10th. It's 7 classes, and it talks about, so how do you boost your brain with physical activity? How do you boost your brain with emotional or stress response? How do you boost your brain by learning new things? It's not just about word searches anymore. How do you do it with your food? How do you do it with your attitude toward life or your spirituality? Or the latest research shows a lot towards social engagement, right? You and I talking right now, we get a gold star because we're boosting our brain by talking to each other. So if you really want to learn more about it, there's this great class. We watch these videos that show the scientific research, and then we talk about it. Okay, so I know this, but what am I going to do about it, right? You can read an article about how to make your brain run. But when they say eat better, what do they mean? When they say get more exercise, well, how much do I have to exercise, right? So if you want to delve deeper, there's a lot to explore, and then you have other people in the class to talk to about, hey, what do you do? Maybe I lift soup cans while I'm watching TV commercials, whatever. You want to get tips and tricks from other people in the class. So this class I love teaching. It's called Boost Your Brain and Memory. It's both a learning experience and a discussion about how do you implement strategies that help you boost your brain. And it's Mondays, September 29th through November 10th from 1 to 2:30. It's again at the Community Center. It's like my favorite room. And if you want to register for that, you call me at 608-548-3954. So that's my direct number to register for that class. And, and then you can also, we can talk about using our noggin.
So, what are the ages that you would suggest for a class like that?
Well, really, we're finding that people more and more, we used to think like 60 and over, 60 was the line, that's, who the ADRC serves. But we're finding that people can get early onset in their 50s and 40s. And so I personally think it's any age, probably over 18. Kids are different. They need to learn it, but I think, somebody in their life can learn it and tell them about it. But it's helpful for anybody. I think even if you're in your 30s and you want to learn what to do now because you knew your grandmother or your mother had a form of dementia and you want to learn, how to avoid that. So to me, it's any age over 18. There is a curriculum for schools. I hope someday we can get our schools to teach the same information. The Department of Public Instruction, DPI, has a curriculum about boosting your brain. So they're realizing that the sooner we start doing things that help our brain, the less likely we are to have that disease later. So this class in September 29th is for adults, but really any age that you're interested in sitting through 7 classes about it. But then, it's information you can share with your family.
Part of it is socialization as well, keeping
right.
a good brain health and things like that. So a
right.
chance to socialize too.
Yes, right. I always feel like just the talking. And also the other thing people always think about cognitive activity, they think, oh, well, I'll do my crosswords, I'll do my jigsaw puzzle. But really, you have to learn new things. So if I've always done word searches my entire, adult life, that's not new to my brain anymore. I have to do something new. So you want to always go to classes or learn pickleball. I had to organize this class around pickleball because that's such a popular activity, right? But you always want to be pushing yourself to learn something new. I mean, you could learn Spanish and not have to, ever practice it, but learning something new will always help you. Right? Learning a language, learning a new way to do things, a new hobby. But at any age, when you're learning something new, you're making new connections in your brain, and that makes it stronger. So yeah, you get double credit for coming to this class.
Definitely. We'll come back with more from Pam Kohlberg in a moment after this time out on The Morning Show. Pam Kohlberg, our guest on the morning show today from WRCO Radio. We mentioned it earlier, a men's shed initiative. Can you shed a little light on it?
Right. Well, I've been hearing about this because the ADRC I'm part of, you'll sometimes hear them say, Eagle Country, and you're like, what county is that? There's no Eagle Country. But what they did is they got 3 counties together. So Juneau, Richland, and Crawford are together as aging and disability resource centers in a county. And so over in Juneau County in Mauston, they started this. And I had heard about it years ago. I think they tried one in Platteville as well. But there's this guy in Australia that said, men just need to get together and do a project together, build something. And that's when men talk. It's not like women who sit at a table and talk over coffee. I don't want to be sexist here, but they just said, we just need times for men. And now, as research is showing, that when you don't socialize, when you're isolated, or you're, you don't interact with people, it affects your body. It affects your mind, right? So we need to get people more chances to get together. But so what happened is we heard about this. It's a big success in Mauston, the Men's Shed. A lot of people, and we said, well, let's do this in Richland County. We got guys here that get together and have it's kind of like a coffee clutch, or like they have over at the bowling alley. I always tell Tom over there that he has the other senior center of guys that gather and play cards or whatever. But so what it is, it's an international movement. It started in Australia in the 1990s, and it's gradually spreading around the world. So there is this organization, you can look up Men's Shed, and it says, Men's Sheds are open to all men, regardless of age, background, or ability. It's a place you can share your skills and knowledge with others, learn new skills, or develop your old skills. And everyone's welcome. And the thing I like is it's going to be welcome to both to people who have different conditions. It might be open to, men who have early stage dementia, but it doesn't have anything to do. It's just a bunch of guys that get together, and then they have something of interest for everyone. And so they think about projects. These men can get together and decide their own program of events. So we're like over, Roxanne and I are over at the ADRC are like, okay, well, how can we make this happen? So we haven't confirmed the exact location yet, but we have some in mind. But we're kind of looking for volunteers. If there's men that sounds interesting to them, how do we get a group of guys together? We want to get some more men involved in the planning committee. Because, women can really, tell men where to go, but we want these guys to feel comfortable. So we're looking at various locations, but we're just beginning to plan. Yeah, how can we have this? It's kind of like maybe a slightly more organized coffee clutch, right? Where we can get together. Are there projects men could do? This group of people could do. Are there educational opportunities? Maybe we'll have beekeepers come talk about how they do beekeeping, or we'll have, I think up in Mauston, they've had all things from, how to, your heating and air conditioning system to, how do you avoid ticks, to, they have all kinds of groups come and present. Public health has presented to them, emergency management has presented to them. And so it's a way to learn things. So it's not just getting together and socializing, which is good, but it's also learning new things. There's all kinds of opportunities of stuff we could do. And we're just at the beginning of going, well, it worked in Mauston. Let's see what we can do here. There they partner with a conservation group, and they have a space where they've kind of partnered with another agency. And it's so popular now, they're building their own space for Men's Shed. And I think sometimes they do building projects. I think it's going beyond just making birdhouses, but it could be something like that. So Roxanne and I just feel like there's a lot of potential there. So we're working with our friend Karn Schaff, and we're saying, okay, how can we start this? Let's start with a place. We'll pick a day and time and see who shows up, and then develop it there. So, like I said, we're looking for volunteers. We haven't confirmed the location yet, and we're just starting to get the planning committee together.
That would be really cool if they could all work on a project together, as you mentioned, put up a building or do something.
Right. Like, actually, I think the Men's Shed up in Mauston is like building their own building together.
Mm-hmm.
But even if it's assembling something for somebody, or talking about something of interest. I think up there you can bring together people about hunting, or I don't know. There's all kinds of possibilities, and so I think it's something that I could really see happening. I don't know about you, but when I travel around, I see a lot of coffee clutches like in different gas stations that have a table. You walk in a gas station now, you look over the table, and there's a bunch of guys talking, and I'm like, wow, if everybody could have that somehow. And we know, because the ADRC has transportation, thank you, Linda, we can also get people there wherever we decide to be. We're trying to look to spread out and not have everything be in Richland Center, but be in Richland County, and maybe there's a spot outside the city where we can gather and do projects together. So, I'm sure that food from our nutrition department and transportation from the ADRC transportation will somehow be built into it. So, you got a ride there, you get some food, and then let's see what happens. Let's create something interesting together.
That's exciting news.
If people want to learn more about it, you can Google Men's Sheds movement, and you can learn about what's happening in other places and get it. But yeah, if anybody's interested, give a call. They can call me or they can call Roxanne at the ADRC, the 608-647-4616 phone number. And let us know if you're interested in being part of it.
It's only fair. You have she sheds. Now you can have a men's shed. And
I think that men's cave started first.
Or man cave, yeah.
Man caves came first.
I think you're right.
But man caves are like one guy doing his thing.
Yeah.
This is letting a bunch of guys come into the cave.
To the cave, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, why is it that men are in caves and women are in sheds? I don't know.
Men are like cavemen, I guess. Maybe, I don't know. Reverting back. And the last thing you kind of mentioned in passing, but you are working on a choir, perhaps.
Well, it turns out there's a lot of them going on. So this idea that music kind of, if you ever Google your I think it's on YouTube, your brain on music, you'll see that music lights up all parts of the brain. And so people like, what's his name?
Glenn Campbell.
The other crooner guy. Oh my God.
Tony Bennett.
Right. There you go. I'm glad you have a memory. That these guys would have like really advanced dementia, but they could still sing because it was such a, what we call an overlearned skill. If you've done something a lot, your brain knows how to do it. And also music just has this magical ability to light all parts of the brain. So music is important. So there's been some choirs back in the Fox Valley area, in Milwaukee, and now there's this group called Giving Voice. It says Defying Dementia Through Music. And so what they are is they're trying to get more rural communities to have these choirs. And so I ran into this person at a conference, and she said, well, there's even like some grant opportunities, some funding opportunities there if we want to do this. And I'm like, Richland County, like, we are so music, right? We have the longest running school band, with Jeff Behrens, and we are just such a music community. In the churches, we have a community choir. A lot of people used to be over at the campus. And so I'm like, we are music. And so, in fact, when I met this lady at a conference and I said, wow, Richland County could really, we are a music place. She goes, yeah, actually, I used to come there and do judging for your music competitions. And she knew Richland County because she had come here for music events and judging. And so, I was like, we can make this happen. And so I just have to find the right people that say they're interested. And then we can, look at getting some training and some funding and some support from this organization called Giving Voice. So it says, join us to create joy in rural communities. Partner with Giving Voice to create 25 new courses for people living with dementia in rural Minnesota and Wisconsin. So we want our own dementia-friendly choir. I don't know the difference between a chorus and a choir, but anyway, I think we can do it here in Richland County because we are a music people. And so anybody is interested in the music choir thing, they can call me directly at 608-548-3954 and say, Pam, what's this thing about Giving Voice and doing a choir? And then, once again, like any initiative, you can get a planning committee together. We can talk about what it takes. And I think we could also build on something that happens. I hear a lot about our community choir. I know we have that classical music concerts. There's a lot going on here with music. So I'm not saying we have to reinvent the wheel, but if we could just sort of use this boost from this Giving Voice organization and create something, I think it's a possibility. There's no deadline here that I know of yet, but I think we can bring more music to Richland County.
That's cool. Yeah,
well known for that.
It wouldn't have to be a concert, so to speak. Just get together and sing a few songs.
And sing. And then the nice thing is, I always like it when you have other people doing the same thing. So, like I said, many dementia care specialists, because there's one of us in every county through every ADRC. Many of them are starting them in Barron County and Eau Claire County, or Chippewa County, I think, in Milwaukee and in Madison. So I have people I can rely on to say, hey, what did you do when this happened? Or how'd you make that happen? And then there's this organization too. So I never believe in creating the new wheel. I'm just going to work on somebody else's. But if there's any place that's going to love a choir, it's going to be Richland County. So yeah, let's get together and sing. Not me personally.
No.
But I would sing in a choir.
You can direct a choir, maybe.
Oh, I would support people. I'm good at clapping. You don't want to hear me sing.
You mentioned Tony Bennett, and I just read about that recently. And he sang like one of the final days of his life. When his caregiver asked him to sing a song, and he did. Which is amazing. At that point, he was really far gone as far as his disease.
Right, but I mean, I saw that working. I worked with a lot of older people in nursing homes. You see music light up. There's something called Music and Memories. It's a program that started in New York, and the state of Wisconsin made it part of our statewide initiative to have this Music and Memories. People might remember we were giving people iPods and stuff like that for music, because what they found is there's people with dementia who can no longer speak. They can't quite focus enough to be able to talk, and yet you start playing a song and they'll sing. So you see people who can't form language in a sentence, but you put on music and they can sing, which is language, obviously. And that's the beauty of music. It taps into a part of the brain. And so there's a famous video on YouTube, I think the guy's name is Henry, where he's totally in his own world, and this guy comes and plays music, and he starts, people who didn't even know he was able to talk anymore see him come out and sing. So we've had that Music and Memories around for a while, that program. But yeah, it's. I think, first of all, if you know a song really well, yeah, never forget it, right? You can think you don't know the words and somebody starts humming it and you sing along, right? I found that with old rock songs. I'm like, I never really knew what the words were. And now here I am singing them. Whoa, I didn't know it meant that. But music has a fascinating ability on the brain. So, yeah, I bet there's songs you didn't. Do you ever find that you somebody says a song and you don't think you know it and you start singing?
A lot of times. With the internet now, you can look up the lyrics. And like you say, sometimes, because we heard them on a 3-inch speaker back in the day.
Right.
Like, well, that's what they say?
On the radio.
I'm still just learning songs after all these years.
My kids are getting to rock. They're all into John Denver now. I never knew he would come back. And I'll be like, I never really listened to those words. Like, because they'll be like, well, what does this mean, Mom? And I'll be like, I never really listened, Pink Floyd, all that kind of stuff. Are you required as being a radio guy to do you sing? Do you catch yourself?
I sing all the time. I've sung all my life. Luckily, I shut the mic off, though, because I beller sometimes when there's
you could be part of the choir.
Yeah, there you go.
That would be awesome. So I want you to clear, this choir is for everybody. It could be kids. It could be adults. It's even me, my non-music singing voice. It's for everybody. It isn't just for people with dementia. The idea is that how can we make musical experience because there's something different singing in a choir than singing by yourself, right? And so how can we get a bunch of people singing together and not worry about whether we have memory issues or not? So this choir would be for everybody.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of fun. We got to let you go. Thanks a lot, Pam.
Good to see you, Phil.
Good to see you. Pam Kohlberg joining us today, Dementia Care Specialist at Aging and Disability Resource Center of Richland Center. And we'll be back tomorrow. We'll have a little bit more. We'll talk about some great meal opportunities through ADRC among our subjects on the morning show tomorrow.